This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Good morning and thank you for keeping it with us here on UBC TV. I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Extra, which is an extension of Good Morning Uganda. Now, just a reminder, we are here from the hour of 6:30, and what do? Is to spice up your morning with a few light moments here and there, but also relevant information. Remember, we set the agenda of the day by ensuring you're well informed and you fit in any meaningful discussion, because we give you information on what is happening globally, not forgetting. We also focus on local stories, local news, so that if you want to be relevant to any conversation, anything that you come across, please, this is the show to start your day with, as long as it is meaningful. Now, today we are going to be discussing a very important issue, and that is labor externalization, but we want to look at repatriation of stranded migrant workers. We know that government of Uganda for a long time has had various agreements with countries on labor externalization. To be specific, when it comes to domestic workers, we signed an agreement with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to have domestic workers taken there to earn a living. However, of recent, we've seen a number of these young girls stranded, wanting to come back home. Some are at our embassy, some are at deportation centers awaiting to come back home. We've had our brothers, we've had our sisters who are in Dubai crying out loud to come back home. Things are not what they expected, they are stranded, they cannot get back home, and they're calling upon government, help aid our repatriation home. Now, later on, I'm going to be joined by someone, that is Ashraf Nsamba, who happens to be coordinating an Atachi office in Saudi Arabia for Indiazi. What he does is to ensure he helps on the welfare of these migrant workers. But before that, we all know that one of the areas where government is getting foreign exchange is this labor exportation. We have over 200 companies, registered companies in Uganda, that are doing this, and government has tried to come up with a number of initiatives aimed at promoting the safety of these workers. However, these have not deterred on several occasions us getting stories of these girls whose life is not what they thought. We've had some come back home in coffins or caskets. We've had some come up back home with broken body parts. But we've also had some come home with successful stories of how they were able to make ends meet and make meaningful investment back home. However, the bad outlines or outcompetes the good, and that is why sometimes our media is awash with images, stories of these young girls suffering. Now, today we want to understand what causes this situation. How can we ensure we come to a solution where those girls that leave Uganda through rightful channels, and I want to emphasize that, not trafficked, but rightful channels, and they end up in such countries, why do we see that what they thought they are going to find then ends up being something different? And what is government doing? Just to remind you, about a year back, government revisited guidelines for these companies. And one of them was the guarantee that these companies have to have on their account before carrying on business. Previously, each company was required to have 50 million as guarantee, that in case there are uncertainties, there is money that is there that government can tap in and enforce repatriation or solve a problem. This was increased to 100 million, that any registered labor company externalization or carrying out this must have 100 million as security paid before commencing business. Now, many of these girls will tell you, we want to come back home, we don't have money. Many will tell you, I can no longer work, I want to get back home. Then the problem arises where families are told, find money, pay 2.5, pay 3 million to have this young girl back. But why that when there is a guarantee? Many will tell you, I didn't understand the nature of job that I was going to do. My point in this business will assure you that no, that is an impossibility, because there is a contract that before you leave Uganda, you've read, you've understood, then you go to this destination. So with my guest that I'm going to be having from Riyadh, that is Saudi Arabia, that is Ashraf Musamba, who has joined, this is what we want to look at. Ashraf, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, UBC. Good morning, viewers. Good morning, Robert.
Well, Ashraf, in the interest of time, allow me go direct to the topic of discussion this morning, which is repatriation of stranded migrant workers. But we want to begin with the root cause. Help us understand, with all the guidelines put in place by our government, the government of Saudi Arabia, also an agreement that is where you, these companies, are a party to. Why are we seeing this as a problem, yet all measures seem to be in place that when a migrant worker leaves Uganda, they know what they are going to do, they know the terms and conditions, their security is almost assured. So why do we see that many now are deportation centers saying we want to go back home?
You're going to find that we are having a biggest number right now of people who are crying that they're under deportation centers, they need to be brought back home. That right now the biggest number we are having is in UAE. And the major reason to this is because many people have gone to UAE without working permits or without working visas. It is known that there was a bilateral signed between Uganda and UAE, but this bilateral up to now was not operationalized. So in this, meaning there is no any person who has an authority to recruit someone to go and work in UAE, maybe as domestic work, or even the other jobs which are there. There is no operational bilateral to define on how people should be working there. So you find that many Ugandans have gone in UAE on visit visas. And these people in the visit visas, some of them promise that you come, I'm going to get your job in maybe 30 days, I'm going to get your job in maybe 90 days. And what happens? This person goes there, the 90 days expire before this person is given a job, of which the law there, that if you're a visitor, you are here for this period of time. Once this period of time is over, you are either going to extend your visa with an amount, or if you stay any day, you are going to pay. And the majority of our people who are there, the days expire, they don't have money to pay, and they don't even have money to go back home. So these become illegal migrants in that country. So automatically, these people are arrested and taken to detention centers so that they can be taken back to their country. So that is what is happening.
Now, rightly explained, let's also, yes, UAE, you've given us most of what many Ugandans know as Dubai and that part of the world. But let's also understand, even where we've seen organized way of doing things, we still have girls at deportation centers. For example, I know that in Saudi Arabia, we have a number of girls at deportation centers that are saying they want to come back home. Go to our embassy here in Riyadh. They also have a number of girls who want to come back home. Then let's look at that which is more organized. Labor externalization, where you even have bilateral agreement between the government of Saudi Arabia and the government of Uganda. Why do we see this problem?
No, when you come to Saudi Arabia, because there is an operationalized bilateral between the two countries, Uganda and Saudi Arabia, you find that it is well stated, it is well established that when a girl goes in a deportation center, when a girl goes in a reception center, there are clear standards, there are clear operational ways that this person who is in a deportation center A, because for example, I think Saudi Arabia said the girls who traveled, I think before 2018, that those ones are catered for by the government fully. Once she's got stranded on the streets and she's captured by the police, taken to the deportation centers, this person is taken back home by the Saudi government. And I think those who traveled after 2018 up to now, these ones, it is the responsibility of the recruitment company in Saudi Arabia. So once any girl is captured by the police and taken, remember we are having two centers in Saudi Arabia. There's what they call a reception center, and there is what they call a deportation center. A reception center is maybe the police has picked someone, they take them to a reception center, which is called the second as of now. But the deportation center, still it is there, but mostly this is where people who are going to be deported back to their countries by the Saudi government, that's where those people are taken. Maybe people who have been in prisons, maybe people who had criminal cases, they are from the police, that's where they are taken. But what is happening in Saudi Arabia? That when someone is caught by the police, or when someone is picked, or when someone is at the reception center or deportation center, the systems are very clear that this person is captured, and the responsible recruitment office is called to come and pick this person. And then this office takes up responsibility of making sure that this person goes back to her country. So most of the times, it will be the responsibility of this company to liaise with the Ugandan company in Uganda on how this person is repatriated back to her country. But what is disturbing, or what is happening in UAE, being that there is no operational bilateral between the two countries, these things cannot be put in place. It's true in Saudi Arabia, we hear some outcries, but most of the times, these are people who are in process to be taken back to their countries. Because I don't think you've had at any time when the Ugandan government, maybe when some politicians from Uganda saying, no, we have gone to Saudi Arabia, we are paying for tickets to bring these girls back home. It's not there, because there is a clear system.
Now,
So
rightly
I think,
explained, Ashraf, though I'm still interested in Saudi Arabia, I'll be going back to UAE later. This is what I want to get clear from you. We know when you're starting a recruitment company, there's a guarantee, there's money that you put there that has to, in case you're bankrupt or anything, and we have such incidents, then that money can be tapped into. But between me and you, we know that there are a number of girls who actually are stranded because the recruitment agencies are telling the families to raise money to get them back home. Most of the images, most of the videos that are on social media, girls crying, bring me back home, I can no longer work. Recently, I saw one of, I think, a girl called Mercy Love, trading so much, where she had allegations of being with a dead body and all that. And she's saying, help me, I need to get back home. Then the community in Saudi Arabia were looking for money amongst themselves to ensure she returns home. Who should return this girl home?
you see, this is a two-way thing. First of all, there are girls who get stranded in Saudi Arabia when it is a responsibility of the recruitment company or the sponsor to bring this girl back home. But still, there are very many domestic workers or other workers who refuse to work with no genuine reason. Someone is going to refuse, because me, sometimes I have them, that me, I've refused to work, I want to go back home. I don't know how they need to go to their village and do rituals. Bagala kusamira. Some of these girls refuse to work and say, me, I'm having some issues on my land in Uganda. I want to go back home to fight for my land. Some of them, they refuse to work, saying, me, when I slept yesterday, I saw my grandfather telling me, if you don't come back tomorrow you're going to be dead. So there are some domestic workers who refuse to work when the contract is saying that she should be the one to take herself back to the country. Still, there are some domestic workers, those who refuse to work when it is the responsibility of the company to take her back home to her country. Those ones, I inform the families, I would advise, in case the family not get justice from the companies in Uganda, let those families go to the Ministry of Labor, let those families go to UERA to report that my daughter was beaten, my daughter was not paid salary, my daughter is sick, but the company has failed to bring her back home. Those ones will get justice. But still, how about these domestic workers who refuse, because they're also there and there are very many who refuse to work with no genuine reason. Someone is saying, me, I cannot continue working. I'm hearing things moving all over my body. We are here to work under contract. Some people are failing to work with no genuine reason in the contract, and they say, I need to be brought back home. So whose responsibility is it? Because someone came here to work, maybe someone facilitated her process of coming here to work, and the same person has worked for 4 months out of the 24 months, and she says, I want to go back home. I'm tired. It is true. Because when you check into the contract, article number 16, it is possible because this person is not a slave. He's coming here to work, there is a contract. But the contract says, when you fail to work with no genuine reason, there is a compensation in the contract. When you fail to work with no genuine reason, you should cater for yourself to go back home. But what is happening, that some of the domestic workers, they are refusing to work with no genuine reason, and still the families in Uganda, or even you, the media, or even the people who are in NGOs, or people who are the, I don't know, people who are known to well informed on what should be the process, they come out and say, please bring back my daughter. So it should be a two-way. We should clearly define whose responsibility it is at all times. When it is the responsibility of a company and the company fails to comply, these companies should be held accountable.
So
but still,
Ashraf, let's understand.
If it is a responsibility.
When is it a responsibility of the company? Because you've clearly said that in case this girl finds that maybe it's too much work than what she thought, or she has this traditional, you know, we're Africans and we can't say no if people are having a Ebola and they are going to shrines. Maybe they have those whatever, ghosts or whatever it is, beliefs, and they say, I can't work. That now the burden is on them. When is the burden upon the company to say you have fallen short of what you should do, take this girl back home?
The contract, you see, the contract between these domestic workers and the employers, which is regulated by the Saudi government, by the Ugandan government, the Saudi recruitment company and the Ugandan recruitment company, it clearly establishes and states what are the rights of the domestic worker, what are the rights of the sponsor or the employer, what are the responsibilities and obligations of the Saudi company, what are the rights and obligations of the Ugandan company. So the contract clearly shows everything. So it becomes a responsibility of a Ugandan company or a Saudi company to bring back home a domestic worker whose rights have been violated in the contract, and she is terminating her contract because of the violation of her rights.
Very interesting. Now also, let's look at the issue of escapees. Because when you talk about migrant workers, more so in Saudi Arabia, the issue of those escaping from these homes where they go to work is also on an increase. And when now these escape, what is their fate? Because many say they have tried the companies that brought them home, the companies they handed them over to that allocated them to sponsors, and what happens is they don't get any help. So where they have their pressed between the hard rock and a stone, they decide to run out of these houses. So what's their fate in case they find that even outside it's worse and they want to come back home?
So what happens here, you see, in the Saudi law, when someone runs out of a house, she or he is given 14 days to report to any government authority. That is her Saudi recruitment office or company, that is her Ugandan embassy, and that is the police. In these 14 days, because once one leaves the sponsor's house, the sponsor immediately has to report on the system called Abshir that domestic worker so and so is no longer in my responsibility. She has left my house. Or I don't know where she is. So this report, once it's put there, within 14 days, the sponsor the system, it is possible to cancel that this person, no, she did not run away. She's at the embassy. She did not run away. She is at the Saudi company. She did not run away. She's at the police station. So I would not advise domestic workers to run out of the houses. But if the situation pushes them to, they should report to authorities. They should report maybe to the Saudi company, maybe to the Ugandan embassy, maybe to the police stations. But what happens that many of them, they run out of the houses, not because they are suffering. Though there are those who run out of the houses because of the suffering or because maybe they are mistreated, but still, there are very many of those who run out of the houses to go outside for greener pastures. That maybe in the house, she's being paid 900 Saudi Riyal. Then she's told by a friend that, no, you come outside here, I can get you a job and you'll be paid 1,500. But the challenge is, once someone leaves the house, once someone leaves the sponsor's responsibility, the problem happens that in case this person is mistreated, in case this person's right is violated by any person, no one is going to fight for this right. Because what happens?
Yes, getting you. I'm getting you very well, Ashraf. I'm getting you. Well,
because
please continue.
Sorry for that. What happens is that when this person's right is violated, when this person's right is mistreated, I report to the police, or I report to the embassy, or I report to the authority, so that they account the sponsor. But what happens if a domestic worker runs out of the house? I don't have any person to report, because anywhere she or he is working, this person is not having a contract between the domestic worker or between the Ugandan government or between anyone, meaning she is working illegally. In case she's not paid, in case she's beaten, in case she's not given medication, anything that happens, no one is responsible, no one is accountable. So this is where the problem comes. That these domestic workers, they go outside. Some of them, they are very okay. But the problem comes when they get mistreated. The problem comes because there are some here, because last time I have a Kenyan friend, he told me one of the people who ran out of the house, I think he was coming from a party with a friend and they pushed him in the swimming pool. This person died. Another, we had another case. Someone was cooking beans in his accommodation. Out of a blue, the smoke came out. This person died. And who died in the house? It was the girlfriend who had come to see the boyfriend. But this girlfriend was someone who ran out of the house. So this is where sometimes you get challenges that my daughter died, but is in Saudi Arabia. She has spent there 10 months. No one is bringing her back home because she's not in anyone's responsibility at this time. So we emphasize so much that all the domestic workers, once you get any problem, once you find the situation is not okay for you to continue working, in case you find that running out of the house is the option you have, of which we don't advise, but if it's the only option you've remained with, please report to authorities within those 14 days. Because many of them, she goes outside, she spends there 8 months, and now she comes back. Me, I left the house because I was mistreated. Where have you been for 8 months? So that's where the problem is.
Okay, well, the 14 days issue well explained. Now, still that doesn't answer the gap. That then what happens? What is the fate? Because I feel maybe these girls are so much on their own that even the laws are not protecting them very much. Ashraf, we've seen a number of girls who are taken by companies. And what happens when their contract expires? They want to come back home. Sometimes their sponsors, what you call sponsors, but these would be their bosses then. I don't know even why they chose the word sponsor. But at the end of the day, these young girls, their contracts ended, they want to come back home, but they are not able. The so-called sponsor says, give me another 3 months, give me another 2 months, for me to set myself and have the money so that you come back home. Remember, the law stipulates that after the end of a 2-year contract, this girl must come back home. If she's to go back, then go through the process again. So what are you doing as recruitment companies where these girls are having overstay, then something happens to her while she's still in the same house where she had an initial contract, and then all the companies tell us, we had a contract with her for 2 years. It ended. Why didn't you come as a contract, as a company, to enforce her returning home? If she so wishes, then goes back.
So here there are two points. First of all, in Saudi Arabia, in case someone overstays, when this person is under contract, it is a responsibility of the sponsor to pay for the overstay. So because there is an operationalized bilateral between the two countries, it is not a responsibility of a domestic worker to cater for the overstay. In case her ICAMA expires and the sponsor does not renew the ICAMA, it is not a responsibility of the domestic worker. It is a responsibility of the employer. So about what should be done, or why do these people overstay and they are not repatriated back home? This one takes us back. The last time I was here, I told you that the challenge we're still having. People are seated back in their offices. People are there seated on their media houses. People are there seated on their Facebook pages. They provide solutions which are not implementable. Because I think we should focus on the monitoring of these domestic workers. We should focus on the complaint management systems of these domestic workers. We should focus on the periodic status updates on the status of these domestic workers. With this, we are able to know that domestic worker X, her contract expired and the sponsor has failed to take her back home. Or, if not, because we are human beings, you might not be able to provide that status report 100%. But still, you have better complaint management systems where if a domestic worker reports that I'm having a problem, because at least now, alhamdulillah, we've tried so much to make sure that many of these domestic workers are having mobile phones, are having SIM cards, they're having smartphones. So at least now that one it's not yet where we want it to be, but a lot of efforts are being put in by the embassy, because the embassy, before carrying any job order, they need that status report. So at least now efforts are coming out, more so from the embassy, on making sure that status reports are provided for these domestic workers. But right now, let's also look on having proper complaint management systems, that in case domestic worker X gets a phone and says, company X, my contract expired, but I'm not taken back home. Do we have people who can handle this complaint? Domestic worker X has registered a complaint, but the sponsor has been called, or the employer has been called, and she has refused, lawyer has refused to comply. Do we have lawyers who can open up cases on this domestic work, on this employer in courts to make sure that the right which is violated is enforced? So I think now we need to go back on the drawing board and discuss on the causes of the problems and what should be the implementable solutions.
Well, on that, let me ask you two things. We have a system, I think it's called Mosaned or Mossad, something like that, where we are told by Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development that this is very effective in terms of monitoring what is happening. But also, we know that various labor exporting companies were given a directive by the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development to have labor attaches, to have representatives in this country of destination or deployment of these girls. How effective are both the attaches, because you're one of them that are managing for Ingazi, and also the system, we are told very modern state of technology that is very effective, where everything by a click of button, you're able to monitor and see the fares and the welfare of a domestic worker. How are these two being a solution?
No, if you look at the system called Musanid, Musanid was not put in place to do monitoring. I want to say this clearly. Musanid, it is a system which was put in place to manage contracts. That, for example, sponsor X wants, or employer X is in Saudi Arabia, he wants or she wants to work with a domestic worker in Uganda. This system was put in place to manage contracts, that this sponsor is going to upload the contract on the company or company system, and the system is going to upload the contract to the office system, and then the office is going to send the contract to the Ugandan system. So I think Musanid is not a solution in monitoring, but Musanid, what it did is to help us, first of all, limit trafficking, because many people were using under table and they bring people here. Musanid, what it does, that you can know domestic worker X is working in sponsor X's house, but it does not do 100%.
Okay.
The labor touches which you've talked about, these labor touches were not broke up to now. They are not there. And I've said this many times, that when you go to the embassy, where we expect that the government should facilitate each and everything, because here in Saudi Arabia, the accounting officer should be the embassy. In case anyone has any outcry, should go to the embassy. But the government has not facilitated the embassy very well. Up to now, the labor touches are not there. Up to now, I'm not very sure, but as far as I know, the budget which is given to the embassy is not enough to cater for what they're doing, because it is this embassy that is responsible for the whole of Saudi Arabia, I think Bahrain, Kuwait, and other countries, but they are not facilitated enough. So here, because at a certain extent, a company in Saudi Arabia is not going to be able to deliver where I need to get a government help, but the people I should run to, they are not well facilitated. So how do you expect each and everything to be done in a better way? So in case we are looking forward, because right now, for example, you go to UAE, these people who are crying, because I'm seeing many politicians turning this to be a political show, that me have brought back people have done what? Bringing back these people from UAE is not a solution.
Because others will
It is
come.
just a short-term solution. But here, in case we are to find long-term solutions, and I'm sure it's what we need right now. First of all, let's go back and ask ourselves, what is causing this? Why are these people going in prisons? Why are these people overstaying in UAE? Secondly, what should be the long-term solution? Because even if you say that you're going to send, for example, Uganda Airlines to go and park maybe at Al Awil, maybe prison, and bring back whoever is there, in the next 2 months, another people are going to go there. Because you have not solved the problem from the root cause. You're just finding a short-term solution. But are you going to be able that every month I'm going to be mobilizing funds to go to Dubai, to go to UAE, and I bring back people who are stranded there? That's not a solution. There are causes of these problems which causes are not focused on too. And because of this, these problems are going to continue. Because people have cried from day one that the embassy is not well facilitated. The embassy is not well facilitated in Saudi Arabia. But up to now, no solutions are there. People, up to now, they are not well facilitated. The staff who are there, they are not enough. But
Now,
no one is talking about this. And at the end
Ashraf,
of the day, you call the ambassador. At the end of the day, you call the consular. I need this person to be brought back home here in the next 2 days. And the person we are talking about is in Abaha or is in Jeddah, which is 1,000 kilometers away from where the mission is.
now,
How do you expect this person to deliver?
now this brings me to ask you, Ashraf. We know that the top 5 leading earners of foreign exchange to our country is labor externalization. If you look at the time of COVID-19, I think it topped even tourism. It topped a number of sectors. Yes, we know when money comes into government, it goes to the consolidated fund, and it is appropriated according to government priorities. But you have been in this business since about 2007. Companies, we began externalization, then we came up with agreements. And one funny thing is that this remains a problem. Have you failed to address your cause? Because you're investors, you're people who bring in money into this country, to the powers that be to understand that, well, much as this is bringing in a lot of money, we must find ways of allocating. Recently, I was speaking to one of the commissioners at the Ministry of Jail and said, we don't have this, we don't have that. You are, because this is what is tainting your business. And one time, the government of Saudi Arabia even thought of saying, no, I think Uganda, they are over-complaining. I think we should halt this officially from Uganda. So what are you doing to present your cause? You're over 200 companies. We have over 1,000 girls already in this. When you go to our airport, Entebbe, on daily, statistics will tell you that we have not less than 200 girls leave this country to come to Saudi to work. So what are you doing to make sure your cause is listened to and action is taken?
I'm sure official means have been used, maybe because I think the embassy also might have written maybe to the relevant authorities in Uganda about how things should work, about how their budget should look like. But I'm sure the government did not consider that, because when you go back, for example, you're going to look in the regulations which were brought by the Ministry of Labor, we don't know who drafted these regulations, my brother. These regulations, I'm sure they were drafted by maybe some few people. So this is a national TV. What we call upon, because the government is not doing enough to understand how the labor externalization industry should operate. This is because they are sitting with people who are not informed on how these things should be. So petitions, I'm sure they have been put. Maybe some people have discussed in parliament. UERA has written to responsible authorities. I'm sure even the embassy here has written to many people, but they are not opening up their minds on how things should operate. So now the option we are remaining with, the good thing I'm on a national TV, I'm sure there are some ministers, there are some commissioners, there are some PS from different ministries who are watching this television. So let's inform them now from here that the things, the way they are working, the things, the way they are moving should not be the right things. So let the government call stakeholders in this, that please, the private sector, where are you? Please, UERA, where are you? Please, embassy, where are you? Please, foreign affairs, where are you? And they sit down and as a team, they draft possible policies, they draft possible solutions, they draft possible operational ways on how the labor externalization should be. But the challenge that we are still having up to now, many ministers, they are seeing labor externalization as a criminal. The problem we are still having up to now, many police officers, they are still seeing labor externalization as an offense. So depending on this, people are not getting information. Depending on this, people are not doing enough to make sure that this thing is streamlined, because whoever looks at it, they see it as a snake. Whoever looks at it, they say, no, those people, they are devils. This is modern day slavery. So because of this, you cannot operationalize it. You cannot make it safe, because people who are responsible in making these things happen, they are not concerned. They see it as an offense. People who, because it is very rare to find that maybe a minister, maybe X, has called company X that, please, you come here. What is the problem? Why do we see this? But whoever sees labor externalization,
for Gender, Labor and Social Development, Honorable Betamongi fly to Saudi Arabia with a team to look at how best they can improve this. And when she came back, well, Cabinet gave you people in this industry a time to explain why this should continue happening. You know, why we should still externalize domestic workers. So don't you think government could be trying, or is it not? Because when you see ministers with a delegation coming back, meeting you people, don't you think maybe they're giving it some level, though you may have failed to really demand you as people in this industry on the part of government?
I mean, I think,
how much money do you think you pay for job orders? I looked at how much government is taxing just on job orders per every girl leaving this country. Job orders, that I think alone can even make 2 billion in just maybe 1 week or two. A lot of money.
Exactly. So if we still have a question from the government that why should labor externalization continue, that's why I've told you that people, up to now, the government doesn't know, or they know, but they see in front of the people, they want to show that they don't know, because the Ministry of Internal Affairs should be aware on how many passports are processed by the labor externalization sector. The airport handling services, they should be aware on how many tickets are issued by the labor externalization industry. The people who are in real estate, they should be aware of how many offices in Uganda are rented by the labor externalization industry. The people who are dealing in health systems, they should be aware on how the labor externalization industry is facilitating the medical sector. The people who are in, what else am I forgetting? The people who are in transportation, they should be aware. The people who are in banking, they should be aware how much money comes on their accounts. The people who are in banking still, they should be aware of how much money is held in banks by the liberalization industry as bank guarantees. So if the government asks the question that why should the liberalization industry continue, so I think that doesn't make sense, because it should be the same government that knows how the industry is facilitating the government, how the industry is facilitating the economy of the country. So that's why I've told you that people in government, up to now, many of them hate this industry, not because they know the facts, but I'm sure maybe they're still on the myths. They had the things which happened before, that whoever goes to work abroad is going to be taken as a slave, because some people, they're not talking about organ transplantation, organ harvesting, that they have evidence. No, many of them are talking about it because they had it maybe in the 90s, maybe in the 80s, that people used to harvest organs in the Middle East. But many of them, when you challenge them that, please, can you please provide evidence on the organ harvest you're talking about? Many of them don't have information. Now you go back and look at this person. There's another person, it was on everywhere. The one who the Lord Mayor brought, that this person, this organ was harvested. I saw everyone coming out to defend the situation. No, this organ, this person he had one kidney. I saw medical officers coming out. I saw everyone coming out. But why aren't these people coming out when the issue is about the labor externalization sector? It is because people are biased. And in this bias, many of them have remained ignorant, that they are not doing enough to understand. But what they are doing all the time is to make sure that they harass the sector, is to make sure that they tarnish the name of the sector. And in this, Ugandans who are recruited in those countries, they are becoming victims, because relevant ministries that should be responsible to understand these things and find better solutions to help the citizens, they are just biased, and with their bias, they are becoming ignorant, and in the ignorance, they are failing to help the citizens.
Well, all well said. I can see how passionate you are when it comes to this sector, but time is not so much on my side. I just want to thank you so much for your time, and I wish you a good stay in Riyadh, that is Saudi Arabia. Have a lovely day, brother. Well, that has been Nsamba Ashraf, who happens to be the manager, Africa Relations in Gazi Recruitment Company based in Riyadh. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope that the authorities that be have listened and will take necessary action. One of the pressing issues is government of Uganda must have labor attaches in this country of deportation, because one of the things that is important, these are the people that can help improve the welfare of these girls. These ones asked by companies, how will a person working for a private company go to a home of a general and say there is a maid that is mistreated here? Definitely impossible. It must be a person who has authority, and it's government by government communicating. Have a lovely day. God bless you. Stay with us on UBC TV.